Hi, everyone. Today I am so excited to be speaking with author Sheila Roberts, and we're going to be talking about her Christmas book called Christmas in Icicle Falls. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
This is fun because I am enjoying these Christmas books so much, and I have to say that until recently, I don't think I've ever read like a book that was a novel that was specifically for Christmas outside of like Charles Dickens. Okay, so I am having so much fun with these Christmas novels. I mean, or to my kids, like my kids' books, and I have 6 children, so I've read Christmas books to them. But as an adult, like woman novel, I am enjoying these so much. It's so fun.
It is. I think, and Christmas is my favorite holiday anyway. There's just something so wonderful about it. I love the message of hope behind the holiday. I love all the trimmings and the lights and the family gatherings and the music. And it just really is my favorite holiday. And I think that's probably the case with a lot of writers who write these Christmas books because it's just such a fun way to celebrate the whole season.
It really is. And it's about writing a book that's about a holiday, such as Christmas, and the covers. Like, what I'm enjoying so much are all the covers of these books.
Oh, yeah, the cover art is always gorgeous.
I'm like, yes, that's what. Well, first of all, let's talk about Icicle Falls, because this is the first one that I've read of your Icicle Falls series, and I want to live there. I want to find it, and I want to live there.
Well, welcome to Icicle Falls. I'm glad you could make it.
Yes, and so I went on your website, and I want everybody to go to your website, which I'll have the link underneath this video, because she actually describes Icicle Falls and the people in it. And I thought that was such a great idea because I've read a lot of series, but I never had an author like on their website explain like the place of where everybody kind of is connected. And I loved that. That was awesome. I read it after I read the book, and I was like, oh, there they are. There's
so that's what this is. Well, let me tell you just a teeny bit about the real Icicle Falls, if you don't mind.
No.
It's actually, this town is based on the town of Leavenworth, Washington. And Leavenworth was a favorite place to visit when I was writing other books before I began this series. It's just a charming little Bavarian town nestled in the Cascades, and it's gorgeous. The scenery is gorgeous. They go crazy at Christmas, absolutely crazy. In fact, they've got more festivals up there than you can shake a stick at. It's just really cute, but it wasn't that way once upon a time. In the early 60s, this town was on the verge of becoming a ghost town. They just, once upon it had been timber industry, that had dried up. The railroad had moved and wasn't going through town, and there were just only a handful of people left. And they were like, gosh, well, what can we do? People are, their last are jumping off the sinking ship here. And someone had the idea, said, he'd been stationed in Germany during World War II or after World War II, and said, you know what, this is very like in the Alps. It looks very much like we've got the scenery for a Bavarian setting. Why don't we turn this into a Bavarian town with a Bavarian theme and just promote it that way? And they did. They restructured the entire town. They redid their storefronts. Everything looks like you're in the Alps. So they've redone this whole thing. Everyone in town got on board, and they reinvented themselves. And this town now, they get thousands of visitors all the time, every day. It's just a huge, popular tourist attraction, and it's adorable. And I just love the fact that they came from dying and doing their death rattle to becoming a viable, charming town. And it's just such a cute town. So I thought that just needs to be turned into something. Somebody needs to really, really, honor this town in a series. And so that's kind of how Icicle Falls got started. And at Christmas, oh my goodness, they have tree lighting ceremonies every weekend in December, and you can take from Seattle, you can take what they call the snow train up, which has Santa and jugglers and fun food, all kinds of fun stuff. And you can take that up, or you can take a bus, or of course you can drive and just hang out for the day in town. And then right around dusk, they start to have a little ceremony. Santa's there, a local pastor says a prayer, there's a little parade, and then they do a countdown, and they turn all the lights on at once, on the trees, on the shops, on the buildings. And it's just, when it's snowing, it's like you're inside a snow globe. So it's such a charming town.
I am so happy to hear that because, the only place I've ever been, and I've lived everywhere, you know, in in my different lives. But the only place I've ever been to somewhere like that is Disney World, because they do a countdown on Main Street every, you know, during the holiday season. I don't know what nights, but they did that. You know, I happened to be there one time when they did that, and I was like, oh, people should do this. This is amazing. You know, I was like so overwhelmed by it. And so I'm really happy to hear that there is a place outside of Disney that, you know, because
yes, it's very cute.
Idea,
it's like,
you know,
Disney goes to Germany, you know. It's really fun. It's a charming place. And if you can't afford to get over to Germany, this is the next best thing.
Oh, that's awesome. And, you know, I grew up in a very small town, and our downtown was in it was the shape of a triangle, and all the business owners knew everyone, okay? And that's the only place, you know, there weren't big chains back then or anything like that, and you did all your shopping there. And so when I was reading your book, I like kept getting visions of, you know, how I knew the people as children, how I knew these, you know, store owners, you know, the candy store and the card store, and then, you know, different. And I was like, you know, it kind of took me back there. And I'm sure it does for a lot of people too. You know, it kind of takes us back, because it's rare now. It's, you know, back then it was kind of a normal situation, but, you know, now it's kind of everybody has a city and you have all your chain stores to shop at, and, you know, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of a
very different animal now. But yeah, it's kind of fun we've got a little of that here in our town where we live, some shops and things, but it's a struggle to compete with the big name stores.
It is. It really is. But this book, okay, so I was identifying with so many of these characters, but what I loved was Muriel. Okay, so she's writing a book, or she wrote a book, okay, about how to deal with Christmas, basically called A Guide to Happy Holidays, which I loved. I was like, oh my gosh, who doesn't need that? We needed a guide to happy holidays. and yet she has to take her own advice. She writes this book, and it's like a bestseller in town, and everybody has it, and then she's struggling to like live by her own. I love that concept, you know, like as she's like, oh yeah, don't forget, this is how I have to be. This is
yes, Muriel is kind of the town wise woman, and so she's written a few books, and you know, and so she's the little local celebrity and the one who's supposed to have her act together. And you know, and that's the case with most of us. We like to think we have our act together, but it's amazing how quickly the curtain can come down on that act.
Oh, it's so funny. And then there's Olivia. Okay, I love Olivia because I have older children now who are married. I have daughters-in-laws. I have two of them. So I was like really relating to her character because, you know, being a mother-in-law, there's no like rules, like how to become the best mother-in-law. There's no rules to it. And she's kind of figuring it out as she goes. And I love that about her in this book. She was like one of my favorite characters too. You
don't always get to pick, well, you don't, period. You don't get to pick who your kids marry. And so you have to adjust. And sometimes I think often mothers think, well, oh, my child could have done so much better, you know, and sometimes that is not, the person is not even a match with who you are. And you're thinking, you know, did he go to Mars to find this girl? Fortunately with me, I've got a fabulous daughter-in-law, so I don't have a problem, and I love my son-in-law, but I've seen enough, been around enough and seen enough to know that is not always the case. And sometimes it can be really hard, you know, and there can be, the poor son kind of gets caught in the middle, you know, and so of course it's important for us to try and look for the best in other people. And I think that really, when it comes down to it, that was kind of the theme of the book. Is
absolutely.
You know, everybody's an ugly tree at some point in their life, and it's important. Of course, I'm probably running ahead here of you, but that's what kicks it all off. Of course, Muriel buys what she thinks is this fabulous tree online, and she gets it out of the box, and it's like, oh, April Fool's, and it's Christmas. What is this disgusting thing? And then she decides to try and make it into something pretty. And I think sometimes we have our ugly tree moments where we need to be made into something pretty. And sometimes we have people in our lives where we're like, you are such an ugly tree. I wish someone would haul you to the dump and get you out of my life. But that doesn't usually happen. There is no dump for the human version of ugly trees. And so it's important to try and find the best in people. And I think that's kind of what the book is about. So this probably goes on my list of one of my favorite books that I've written just because I love the theme to it.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, funny story is I'm reading your book this weekend, and I got myself a tree. Far from perfect. And my
oh,
son
no.
took me to go get it. And we put, as I'm buying it, my sons are like, my older sons are like, this is not going to work, Mom. This is not. I'm like, no, I think it is. Like, I have this corner. I know where I want it. I think it's going to work. And we brought it in, and it's completely crooked. But
oh, no.
If you have a completely crooked tree, anyone listening out there, if you have it, like, there's one good angle of this tree, okay? And that's the one I have facing the door. So,
oh, well, there you go. Put your best bows forward. Oh. Okay, that's pretty funny. I mean, and we all sometimes do that. Oh, my gosh. I remember many a tree when my father was not a handyman. In fact, I remember sometimes that my mom called the plumber. He would say, don't let Dawn touch anything. I'll be right there. And so we had many a tree that was like wired to, he's like, oh my gosh, my poor house. He'd like put little nails in the baseboards and wire the tree so it wouldn't stand out and, fall down. And then there were the trees that, you bring it into the house and scrapes the entire ceiling and just, so we had so many interesting trees when I was growing up because my dad, he always had these grandiose visions and then he'd bring home these ridiculous trees that just wouldn't even remotely work. I don't know how they ever always managed to turn out into a thing of beauty, but they did. But, oh, my gosh, some of them to begin with were just scary.
Well, and, I had the exact opposite. My mom always had a fake tree because she wanted it to be perfect, and my brother and I were not allowed to touch it. She decorated it my entire childhood, right? So I was telling my sons this story. I'm like, no, don't you understand? I don't want the perfect tree. I've had the perfect tree my entire life. Like, I want a tree that I can make pretty. Like, it's going to look good. I'm going to hang lights. And I'm going to, I'm going to do everything to, and they're like, yeah, okay, you're crazy, but whatever. Like, it's a real tree, and I'm really proud of it. So, and
good for you. That's great.
Well, okay, so I wrote down a couple of quotes from this book because, first of all, we had Muriel's kind of wisdom at the beginning of every chapter. So I love those. But I'll give you, I had to pick one quote, and I was like, pick one quote that was your favorite. So this is it. And it's from her book. And it says, and this kind of sums it up too, I think. When dealing with those difficult people that you're able to avoid the rest of the year, try to keep your encounters brief, stay positive, and find one good thing about that person to focus on. So I found that with every character, when they had that person, and they would try to focus on, pick something good, and then focus on that. And I was like, that is so perfect. I love that. I love that quote. Did you know that it was going to be I don't know, when you were writing it, did you realize what a great part that was going to play in the whole book?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think that quote kind of summed it up because, again, like I said, we all have people in our lives at some point or other that we don't necessarily hit it off with. There's not that connection, or they just plain irritate us. But no one as a child says, I want to grow up to be an irritation to others. Who says that? I want to grow up to be the human equivalent of an ugly tree. I want to drive people nuts. No one says that. But somehow along the way, we select our flaws, and because we're all human. And so I just think it's important to say, hey, there is something good in this person somewhere in there, and I'm going to be the one to find it. And it just makes your holiday so much nicer if you can try and focus on the things that are good. And if that person does drive you nuts, then you're in for a quick cup of eggnog, and, oh, gee, look at the time. I'm feeling ill. I have to go. And then, and then you get out of there. You don't stay and continue to torture yourself. And, and especially in cases where there really are very, very serious problems, you don't have to bring every evil, horrible person that's ever been in your life into your life. But I'm talking mostly about people who are they're just irritating. They're just not perfect. But again, who is, and so I just think it's good to keep that in mind.
You can't avoid, you have to figure out a way to deal with them, so you might as well, since you can't avoid them, you should, pick the one thing that you do like, or one quality that you do like about them.
There you go. You pick that one thing. And then, of course, there's the other aspect in the book with the whole thing about sometimes we overlook the potential in people, which, of course, is what happens with Muriel. She's had this man in her life for years. He's watched her go through 2 husbands, and he's just always been there, just Mr. He's just, he's just not going to ever get on a Laurie Foster hunk of the day, tweet, but he's just a sweet, kind, wonderful man, and she's always sort of taken it for granted and overlooked that. And it's amazing how much we don't see until maybe someone else takes an interest in that person. That's like, oh, what was I missing? So I thought that was kind of a fun storyline too. But I want to, if you don't mind, circle back real quickly with the tree. And just, I thought you might be interested in knowing how the book even got started, because a friend of mine actually did order a tree online and got it home and went, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I'm getting her place. I'm visiting with her. It was last Christmas, and visiting and looking at this gorgeous tree, going, oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. And so then, of course, she told me the story of this disgusting dud that she had gotten, and just determined she was going to make the best of it and turn it into something pretty. And that was what she did. And we got talking about that and saying, hey, there's a moral in there somewhere. We should look for that. And so that's kind of how it started. I thought, I think there's a story in this. And by gumballs, there was.
And I love stories that, well, I'm a sucker for a happy ending, okay? I mean, there's no way around it, okay? I want to have
I am with you there.
I
agree, absolutely.
Going on. I want a happy ending. But what I love is the journey to the happy ending. That is when you can just sink into a book and you take that journey and and there's twists and turns that you didn't expect, and so I felt like this book really captured that. Because you're not sure how it's going to work out, but at least I knew, like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to end up happy. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I'm pretty sure this is going to all be good, because most Christmas books are, for the most part, anyway. But
Christmas. But I mean, who wants to be depressed at Christmas?
Right.
And frankly, for my entertainment, I know there are many fabulous books out there that are just horrible and depressing, but I'm going, life is hard enough as it is, so I'm going to leave that to somebody else to do, and I want to write things that are going to end with everyone smiling, with a reader going, well, I'm glad everything turned out for them. I just don't want the reader to shut the book and go, oh, why did that have to happen? So, I'll leave that to somebody else. I'm with you. I'm a happy ending girl, and especially if I'm reading for entertainment and escape, I want to come away with a smile on my face, especially at the holidays.
Absolutely. I mean, and I read a lot of intense books sometimes just because of what I do here, but nothing makes me happier than to sit down with a novel and I'm going to be like, look at this. It's not a memoir, it's not a biography, that you kind of know what's going to happen. This is like a novel that I just know I'm going to be like, there was a time that people were like, oh, I just want to read nonfiction. I just want to read nonfiction. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to read fiction. Fiction is like.
I think a balance is good. I mean, I love to read a good biography or memoir,
right,
but sometimes I just want to have a happy story and laugh a little bit. And I hope I'm able to offer that in my books. I mean, I crack me up. I think I'm funny, but then I'm easily entertained. So what do I know?
Well, this is not your first Christmas book. And first of all, I don't even know how many books you've written, because I try to write them down, and I was like, all right, I can't find them all. I mean, you have written a lot of books, because what I usually like to do is put the dates next to them, and then, talk about like how often you write. Well, you write all the time. So there was no point in being like, oh, guess what? You write all the time, because that's what you do. You put out a lot of books and a lot of Christmas books. Is this like third, fourth Christmas book?
I honestly have lost track. I've written a ton of them. I've written a ton of books under different names. I've had a couple books turned into movies for a Lifetime on Hallmark, which is way fun. And I've done a lot. Christmas really is my favorite holiday, and I just love writing stories about it. So I guess as long as the story fairy shows up and gives me an idea for a Christmas book, I'll kind of keep turning them out, because for me that's part of the fun of the holidays, is having a Christmas tale to be able to read or watch.
Yeah, the Hallmark Channel will do that. They'll put out these great, Christmas movies and Lifetime. So I really hope they do that with this one. I mean, I'm saying my silent prayer that this turns into a movie, because I love the characters so much. But we'll see what happens. But I tell you what, that's not an easy nut to crack, even if you've had a couple under your belt. But one can always hope.
And meanwhile, there are all kinds of other good movies out there to watch. One of my all-time favorite, I have a couple of all-time favorites. The best movie ever made, as far as I'm concerned, is It's a Wonderful Life. I watch that every year. I love that movie and love to watch the Griswolds with their family Christmas and and A Christmas Carol. Probably one of the best Christmas of all the best Christmas stories and books ever written. I think Dickens tops us all.
Wow,
that was an amazing story.
Absolutely.
But oh well, one can only try to measure up to Dickens. I would love to be Dickens in drag, but that probably is not going to happen. So I'll just do my best as Sheila Roberts.
That's right. And I was reading this book on WhisperSync. If you ever heard of that, is that I had the Kindle and then I had it hooked up to my audio. So if I get in the car, like I'm reading your book on my Kindle, I hook it up in my car, and then it takes me to the exact page where I am in Kindle, but I'm in your audiobook. So I can
oh, wow,
double duty it. And I suggest
that's amazing.
Who love to, who enjoy that. I mean, it has become my best friend. So I just wanted to tell you that the woman who did your audiobook, Amy McFadden, did an amazing job. In case you didn't hear it, she did such a good job with the characters. It was like, because I'm reading it, and then sometimes you'll put it in, and it's like, oh, that's not what I heard in my head. But she did such a good job. It was like almost dead on. I was like, yes, that's how I want her to sound. Yes, she was really good, really, really good. So I thought you'd like to know that, because that's always
that's good to know. I haven't seen a copy yet, so I'm happy to hear that people are liking it and turned out well.
Well, what I'm telling people is because a lot of us travel at the holidays. So if you're getting in your car and you want to listen to a really, fun book, just stick this in and you can listen to it. If you don't have time, that's the beauty of it. I love listening to books, and it's a huge audience because a lot of us spend a lot of, time in our car. So, it's out there.
Isn't that the truth?
and it's good for you to know. I mean, it's out there. It's a huge audience, and I just thought you'd like to know she did a fantastic job with it. So,
thank you. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, what are you? Before we wrap this up, I want to hear, because I know this was the last of the ICICLE. How many were there in the ICICLE series?
There were 11 actual books in the series, and I think then a couple of little online things, but basically 11 books. So we didn't quite go out on the even dozen, but 11 is a good number, and it was a lot of fun to write. I really enjoyed it, but it's I think my publisher thought let's try something new. Let's move to a new neighborhood. So come spring, we're going to move to the beach, so that will be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
So that's coming out in the spring?
Yes, come spring, we will, myself and any readers who would like to get away to the beach will be going to Moonlight Harbor. So that's going to be where the new series will be set. And that's based loosely on my other favorite town in Washington, which is Ocean Shores, which is on the Washington coast.
That's awesome because, I've read a lot of beach books, but none from the Pacific Northwest, like any beachy towns up that way. There are like also, all kinds of beach towns along where I am, all the way up and down the East Coast. But that'll be
They're probably a lot warmer than over here. It's not exactly, let's go to a nice warm beach until you hit, July and August. But it's fun, too, to watch the storms come in. And we really, that's a very favorite town of ours. A fun little vibe. I think I've always been a small town girl. There's something about that sense of community that you have when you live, when you know everybody.
Right. And, for as much fun as it is in December to read the Christmas novels, who doesn't love to read beach novels in the summer? I mean, that's my favorite thing to do in the summer,
Oh, yeah.
So,
go to the beach for the book.
So much fun. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Sheila. It was so much fun, and I love your books. I love your writing. I can't wait to see, whatever you have next, I'll read, so.
You're sweet. Well, I just really so much appreciate you taking time to talk to me. It was really fun. I just feel like I've made a whole brand new great friend here. So it's been a lovely conversation, and I just wish you a wonderful holiday filled with good cheer, and may any ugly tree in your life become beautifully decorated, and may all your cookies have no calories.
That's it. That's right. Thank you. You too. Have a great evening.
All right. Okay, you too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.